any measure, ferrymen are considered outlaws in the eyes of the Imperial House. Even the so-called sanctioned ferrymen are only given legitimacy to placate guild administrators. A collection of hard-bitten survivors and rogues, they live a haphazard lifestyle in a region as perilous as any to be found on the blighted hive world. Nearly all who cross the dust wall in search of fortune and glory must deal with these miscreants, for they alone have the skills to reliably traverse the hostile wasteland and the unimaginable horrors of the Secundan Abyss. Only the entitled sons and daughters of Lord Helmore who don Spira suits eschew ferrymen, having their own secret ways of entering the ruined hive. Ferryman enclaves remain the only place of sanctuary within the exclusion zone and vital places of refuge for any travelling between the dust wall and the Secundan Abyss. In the earliest days of their survival, the progenitors of the ferrymen took shelter in the towering hive repair cranes scattered around Nostrum, which stood abandoned when the exclusion zone was created. These massive machines soon became mobile towns, their fortified shells able to repel the servants of the Malstrain. In time, the ferrymen would create other settlements within the wastes, but it was the cranes that endured. Many were moved to the edge of the abyss where they were used to lower explorers down into its murky depths, often on huge platforms carrying vehicles. The oldest of these crane towns are owned by the Cog Collective or the Deep Hive Enclave, and moved to places like Port Styx or Port Skeg, depending on the seasonal variations in the vortex, the perpetual storm that hangs over the vast pit. The ferrymen who crew these cranes are among the most experienced, though also the most cautious when dealing with outsiders, having seen the extent of the horrors waiting for the unwary in the abyss. Younger, more adventurous ferrymen sometimes form their own enclaves, like the Iron Worm or Dust Racers, who believe the crane towns are not fortresses but prisons. They have constructed massive crawling, flying and skimming vehicles so they might always be on the move, relying on sheer speed as their defence against the Malstrain. Then there are those ferrymen who have taken the fight to the Malstrain, such as the Rust Warren or Windspine Enclave. Heavily armed, they repurpose the detritus of war into fighting vehicles and train and equip their people like soldiers. While formal ties between the clan houses, merchant guilds and the ferryman enclaves remain elusive, any who have entered the wastes beyond the dust wall and managed to return to civilization with both their lives and something to show for it, readily confess they owe their survival to the ferrymen.
Hello and welcome back to Wellywood Wargaming. My name is Damon and in this video I'll be exploring probably the coolest thing about new Necromunda, Abyssal Ferrymen. Before we get started though, please do like, share, subscribe and check out the Patreon as well to support me further. Now when the Warhammer community reveal went up for the new Book of Delights, aka Book of Desolation, which Games Workshop were very kind enough to send me by the way, the thing that I was most excited about was the tiny little bit of information we had about ferryman teams. Now I knew nothing about what ferryman teams were, and the whole community was going crazy speculating what these Abyssal Ferrymen were. Really cool sounding. The only bit of information we had to go on was the back of the book here, and all you had was ferryman teams. Rules for including these guys to the Secundan exclusion zone in your Necromunda campaigns. Now what in the underhells are Abyssal Ferrymen? Now when I did finally get my grubby little mitts onto the Book of Delights, I skipped past many of the delights that most people were very excited about. I skipped past the Spiras, I skipped past the Malstrain gangs, the campaign, the tech hunters, and all of that juicy lore at the beginning there. I skipped past it all because I just really wanted to find out what in the underhells these Abyssal Ferrymen are. And that, boys and girls, is why we're here today. To find out what Abyssal Ferrymen are, how you use their teams in your campaigns, and yeah. Now, there are no official Games Workshop miniatures as yet for the Abyssal Ferrymen, but if you ask me, reading up on these guys, they are a kit bashers and converters wet dream, I would say. There is, of course, the image on the front of one of the Dramatis Personae, who is an Abyssal Ferryman that you can use in your teams as well. We'll get into that in another video on the Abyssal Ferryman Dramatis Personae that you can get, but this video is really about the generic ones that we get in the campaign. Okay, so first things first, before we get into the actual stats and how these work mechanically in your games of Necromunda, the special rules here, because this puts into context what the Abyssal Ferrymen actually are. The first one is pay the ferryman. So an Abyssal Ferryman team may not be hired in the usual way. The only way to include one in your gang is by supporting the Archaeo Hunters in an Underhells campaign. So If you don't know what that is, the Underhells campaign is the campaign that is based in the Book of Delights. And this is, in my opinion, by far the best campaign system to date. It has everything in it. It's the most narrative, most fun, most awesome, most excellent campaign to date. I really do believe that. I do. I'm going to do a separate video on all the campaigns just to sort of give you an overview on all of them. I have done one for the Underhells campaign, so do go and watch that if you haven't already. The long and short of it means that these Abyssal Ferrymen do not have any sort of regular costing. They don't cost any gold. You basically get them if you are a goodie in the Underhells campaign. If you are a baddie, you get something else. If you are a goodie, the Abyssal Ferrymen are yours. The next one is the Ferryman Enclave. Now this means that when you choose your Ferryman Enclave, you must pick between 4 different types of enclaves that we'll get into shortly, and that is where your Ferryman Enclave actually come from. The next special rule is Wanderers of the Abyss. Unlike other models, members of an Abyssal Ferryman team do not gain XP. When rolling on the lasting injury table for Ferryman Skippers, Ferryman Rig Handlers, and Ferryman Steersmen, the result is automatically out cold. Additionally, whenever a vehicle crewed by a Ferryman Steersman is wrecked, do not roll the lasting damage table. Ferryman Steersmen are experts at jury-rigging their vehicles and keeping it running. Next one is Here to Help. Unlike other models, Abyssal Ferryman teams are not counted during the choose crew step of the pre-battle sequence. Instead, at the end of this step, these models may be added to the crew. So they are addition to your crew. So we have 3 different types of fighters here. We have the skipper, which is the leader. We have the rig hand, which is either a champion or a ganger sort of type. And we also have a steersman, who is a crew. The next thing is the equipment. Each of them has a different equipment allowance as follows. The Ferryman skipper is equipped with mesh armor and up to 140 credits worth of weapons and war gear from the trading post with a rare or illegal rating of 10 or less. Pretty good, a bit like an outcast leader there. The Ferryman rig hand is equipped with flak armor and up to 100 credits worth of weapons and war gear from the trading post with a rare or illegal rating of 8 or less, similar to an outcast champion. And the last one, the Ferryman steersman, is armed with a stub gun and a custom rig with up to 150 credits worth of upgrades, weapons and vehicle war gear drawn from the custom rig equipment list, and the trading post with a rare illegal rating of 8 or less. In terms of skills, the skipper and the rig hand can choose a single skill from the brawn, shooting, combat, ferocity, cunning, savant, or agility skill sets. So lots of choice there, except for leadership. Really, really good. The Ferryman steersman may choose one skill from either the driving or shooting skill sets as well. Now, when you choose these guys, you have 3 different profiles for the Ferryman skipper, which is the leader. You have 3 different profiles for the Ferryman rig hand, and just 1 single choice for the Ferryman steersman. And I'm going to go through those profiles now. So for the Ferryman skipper, we have the following 3. The first profile is a movement 5, weapon skill 4+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 3, toughness 3, 2 wounds, initiative 2 up, which is great, 3 attacks, 7+ leadership, 6+ cool, 7+ willpower, and 7+ intelligence there as well. So pretty average, slightly better at shooting and lots of attacks, which is an interesting one, but a decent profile all in all. The next one is movement 5, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 4+, strength 4, toughness 3, wounds 2, initiative 4+, attacks 2, and the mental stats of an 8+ leadership, 5+ cool, willpower 6+, and intelligence 6+ as well. So definitely slightly more of a fighty profile with higher weapon skill and higher strength, and obviously the higher cool there as well. The last profile is an interesting one, and this is movement 4 with a 4+ weapon skill, a 3+ ballistic skill, so slightly better at shooting, perhaps a squat, with strength 3 and yes, toughness 4. So I would say this guy is probably more of a squat. We have 2 wounds, initiative 3 up though, which is pretty good if he was a squat, 2 attacks, and the mental stats of a 7+ leadership, 6+ cool, 7+ willpower, and 5+ intelligence. So pretty good there. So if you've read the Book of Outcast, you'll probably notice when you select an Outcast generic leader, it's pretty similar to doing this. So you have different profiles to choose from. They all kind of even out a little bit, but if I'm going to choose a Ferryman skipper myself, I'll probably go with the middle one with the higher weapon skill, the higher strength, or the last one as well. But that movement of 4 is a little bit painful at times. The next one is the Ferryman rig hand. Now this guy's pretty much a champion, and some of the stats here are just fantastic. The first one is movement 3, very, very slow indeed. Weapon skill 4+ and ballistic skill 4+, so not great so far, but a strength 4, a toughness 4, and 2 wounds. So pretty great there. We've got initiative 5+, attacks 2, and mental stats of leadership 8+, cool 5+, willpower 6+, and intelligence 7+. So interesting stats there. Not great really, but high strength, high toughness, low movement, and average stats everywhere else. It's not the most attractive one. The second one we have here is movement 5, weapon skill and ballistic skill 4+. Again, strength 3, but toughness 4. 3 wounds, so more like an Orlock sort of leader here. Initiative 5+, 2 attacks, 8+ leadership, 6+ cool, 8+ willpower, and 7+ intelligence. The last Ferryman stat profile for you here is movement 4, weapon skill 4+, ballistic skill 5+, so not very good at shooting, but strength 5, toughness 4, and 3 wounds. So pretty much almost into Ogren territory there. We've got 6+ initiative, which is dreadful. 2 attacks, a leadership 10+, terrible, cool 6+, willpower 7+, and intelligence 9+. So kind of an Ogren, kind of not, but I really love the variation in stats here. You can really choose some cool stuff, and not forgetting that you can add a skill to these guys as well to make them even better. The last one is the Ferryman Steersman. There is no choice in profile here. It is just one flat profile, and we have a ballistic skill of 4+, a leadership of 7+, a cool of 6+, a willpower 7+, and intelligence 8+ as well. So pretty good for a vehicle crew stat line there. So yeah, lots of choice in those profiles. I really do like the variation, a wide variation between the skippers and the rig hands. You can get some really cool, mismatched, but awesome little crews there. Not to mention adding a skill and all the equipment that you can get, especially on the leader. Rare 10 is pretty good. You can get some interesting stuff, whether it's shooty or fighty or just shenanigans in general. Pretty fun. The next thing to look at are the actual enclaves that we're going to get into now. Now, getting into the Ferryman enclaves here, when an Abyssal Ferryman team is hired, the player must choose which enclave they hail from, which will then inform their playstyle and any special rules they bring to the gang they have joined. The first one is that of the Explorer. At the end of each cycle, this Abyssal Ferryman team is in the employ of the gang. Add D3 exploration points to the gang's total. Now, exploration points, if you've watched my video on the Underhells campaign, there are one of the ways that you can win the campaign. So pretty important here. D3 at the end of each cycle is decent. It's not the most exciting or fun or fluffy, but it is a way to actually win the campaign. So it's fairly important, that one. The next one is the Enclave of the Hunter. While the Abyssal Ferryman team is in the employ of the gang, all members of the team and any friendly fighters within 6 inches can re-roll failed wound rolls against roaming horrors. Now, roaming horrors are also something that are exclusive to the Underhells campaign, and one of the things that I think make the Underhells campaign really, really fantastic. We have roaming horrors and greeblies in every single scenario, and just extra stuff to kill. I really like this one. Re-rolling failed wound rolls against them is excellent as well. Mind you, really you want all the XP to be going to your actual gang members, not to the Abyssal Ferryman, so it's worth bearing that one in mind. The third one is the Enclave of the Tinker, and this is pretty much doing what it says on the tin here. At the end of each cycle, the Abyssal Ferryman team is in the employ of the gang. Add D6 times 5 credits worth of weapons or war gear to the gang's stash from their house equipment list. Now, D6 times 5 is not very good and is not going to get you much stuff. It might be an auto pistol or a cheeky little knife or something, but it's certainly not world breaking. So far, I would say this is the weakest of the 3. However, again, when we look at it in the context of the Underhells campaign, where the further you go into it, the harder it is to get new stuff, this can be quite handy. So on paper, doesn't look great, but do go and look at the rules for the Underhells campaign as you go into it, because like I said, it's harder to get stuff. The fourth enclave to look at here is that of the Survivor. Second chance. While this Abyssal Ferryman team is in the employ of the gang, once during each cycle the gang may perform 1 medical escort post-battle action costing 0 credits. This medical escort battle action may also be used to save a fighter that suffered a memorable death. 66 result on the lasting injury table. That, for me, I think is the favourite and the one that I would go for by default, because it just means that you can save your guys. It's pretty crucial. The cost of a leader who dies can be astronomical, and it can really ruin your entire campaign if you lose a fighter early on in a campaign, it's just too brutal. So I think having that is a really nice way of taking the edge off a little bit. Of course, it doesn't always work, as you know, with medical escorts. It doesn't always work, but it's still pretty handy to have that, I think, for free. So those are the 4 enclaves. For me, my favorite is by far the Survivor there. Let me know what you think in the comments down below about those 4. In summary, the Abyssal Ferrymen are just an awesome, fluffy, narrative kit basher's wet dream. I think this is a really good excuse if you got into Ash Wastes to carry on some of your vehicles from that or create new stuff. We can make an awesome custom rig and some excellent kit bashes for the the steersman and the leader and whatnot there as well. Really, really fun, really fluffy. Like I said, lots of nice variation on the stats there and the types of equipment that you can have, similar to that of bounty hunters and whatnot. It is a shame that it is so far locked into the Underhells campaign, even though I do fully believe that the Underhells campaign is the best campaign so far, and I can't wait to play it. It is a bit of a shame that we don't have costings here, because what I would like to see is Games Workshop, please Games Workshop, if you're listening to this, do come out and give us some costings for these so that we can use them as an Outcast delegation-led gang, because I'd really like to do that. It would just be really cool. But then again, I suppose if you're playing the Underhells campaign, you will have no need for that whatsoever. So I'm including this in my Allies series here as the first one in this series, because even though they aren't officially an ally and they don't work in the way that the other allies do, they are still kind of allies. You just don't have to pay for them. So pretty cool. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, though. I really do like the Abyssal Ferrymen. The idea around them is just really, really cool. I cannot wait to see the miniatures that come out for these guys as well, because the illustrations in the book are fantastic. Like I said, I'm going to be back shortly with a couple of videos on the Dramatis Personae Abyssal Ferryman teams that you can get, because there are 4 in this book that you can pick for the same cost, for free. You can pick Lugren and Mudrick Hellbane, Hagthor Jarlan, and Asta Felstern, who is the chick on the front cover of the Book of Delights as well. I'm going to go into those and do separate videos for those in my Dramatis Personae series as well, because I like to split these things into chunks. But let me know what you think about these guys. Have you experimented with building any yet? Have you experimented with actually using them on the tabletop yet? I know it's early days, but do let me know. And I'll be back with another video real soon. Peace out.